So I've titled this video, Two Perspectives of Subtraction. What's the difference? I've included a little dry humor there that you will hopefully understand in a few minutes if you don't already. Well, when you're first taught subtraction, you're taught that if you have 10 apples and you take away 2 apples, you're left with 8 apples. I call this the takeaway perspective of subtraction. The other perspective of subtraction is based on what subtraction is about. If you think about the answer to a subtraction problem being called the difference. We call the answer to a subtraction problem the difference. And so another way to approach subtraction is from the difference perspective. So we've got the takeaway perspective and the difference perspective. I'm going to model both of these perspectives. And I'll just give myself a little bit of room here, and we'll model 10 minus 2 equals 8 from both perspectives. How about that? Now, I'm going to use a number line to model these two perspectives. Of course, if you start with 10 apples, or you start at 10 on the number line, and you back up 2 spaces, you end up at 8. 10 take away 2 equals 8. That's the takeaway perspective. But let's take a look at the same thing from the difference perspective. Okay, in the difference perspective, 10. Remember, we're looking at 10 minus 2. 10 minus 2. Well, 10 is different from 2. 2 is way down here. What number would it make sense to use to describe how different 10 and 2 are? Well, they're different by 8, because 10 is 8 more than 2. The difference is 8. And see, if you think about it, it makes sense to say the difference is 8. So you're probably thinking, what's the big deal? I've got 2 different ways to think about subtraction. Well, it's a pretty big deal if you think about the fact that you have many different subtraction problems that you have to perform. Suppose 46 minus 12, it's probably easier to think about takeaway. You take away 12 from 46, and you're left with 34. You're not taking away that much. But what about 46 minus 39? You're taking away a lot more there. So you might want to think about 39, 46. What's the difference? How different are those two numbers? Well, 40 is right above 39, and there's 1 unit from 39 to 40, and then 46 is 6 more than 40. So the total difference is 7. See, and you wouldn't have to draw this out. You could probably picture this in your head, but this doesn't require any borrowing, which is what you would have to do if you did it the traditional way. Now, let's, just for the fun of it, I guess we could say, let's take a bigger problem. Let's go into more digits. Let's take the problem 543 minus 345. Now, that's not necessarily easy either way, but let's approach it from the traditional takeaway perspective first. First of all, we can't subtract 5 from 3, so we're forced to borrow from the 4, which is really 40. I wish teachers wouldn't say borrow from the 4. We're taking 10 away from the 40 to turn the 40 into a 30. And we're taking that 10 and adding it to the 13. So 13 minus 5 is 8. 3 minus 4, really 30 minus 40. That's, again, not possible. So we have to borrow 100 from the 500. 500 becomes 400. We add that 100 to the 30, and we get 130 minus 40. And 130 minus 40, again, sadly, some people would think, oh, I have to do borrowing there. No, it's 90. And then 400 minus 300 is 100. So 198. But now, let's take a look at this, what this would look like. It's more trouble than it's worth, to be honest, but it is kind of cool that we can illustrate this using the difference perspective. So 345 back here and 543 at this end. Now let's just count up from 345. We're really just asking ourselves, what is the difference? And see if you can figure that out by taking it into chunks. We're going to divide this difference into chunks and add them up. 345 will go to the next 10, and that will be 350. Okay, that's one small chunk. That's 5 right there. And then we'll go to the next 100. 350. The next 100 that we get to is 400. Of course, this is not a scaled number line because I'm just making. I've got 50 here, and I've used the same amount of space as I used for 5, so we're not worrying about the scale here. And then, well, now I'll back up from 543 to 540, because that's the next 10, and that's 3 right there. And then I'll back up to the next 100, which is 500. And from 500 to 540 is a difference of 40. And then from 400 to 500 is a difference of 100. So what's the total difference? We've got 100 plus 50 and 40 is 90, plus 5 and 3 is 8. It's got a difference of 198 when you add up all those parts of the difference. So any subtraction problem can be viewed from the difference perspective. And I might also mention that the difference perspective is going to be the more dominant perspective of subtraction higher up in math. When you get to high school math, you'll deal with some concepts that focus more on the difference perspective. And if you think about subtraction as being a difference, how far apart are two numbers, then you're going to understand some concepts later on in math much better.